Texas water law can be thought of as being contained in three buckets, depending upon the geological location of the water. There's a bucket full of laws for natural surface water, one for groundwater, and one for something called diffused surface water. Let's talk about natural surface water. Natural surface water found in waterways, such as rivers and streams, is owned by the state of Texas and managed for the citizens of the state. This includes the ordinary flow in streams and tidal waters on the coast. Water from rain and floodwater found within natural rivers, streams, and lakes, and in man-made reservoirs on waterways is also state water. Even water in springs that form the headwaters of our streams and rivers is also considered surface water. Surface water is allocated to people as a water right permit. Water right permits give holders a set amount of water on an annual basis from a specific location on a water body. Once people have a water right permit, they can sell all or part of the water right to other people. Because it's not possible to say exactly how much water will be in a stream, lake, or spring at any point in time, water is allocated among the permit holders according to who received rights to the water first. This system is called prior appropriation. A water right is kind of like a ticket for a place in line for available water. In times of drought, when water in streams and lakes may be very low, the person who holds the first water right permit may take their full amount of water first from the water that's available. The next most senior permit holder may then take their full amount, and so on. Some people who have permits for water may not receive any water in drought years. In some Texas streams, more water has been allocated than flows in them in dry years. Pictured here, landowners have placed small dams across small streams to hold water for later use. Diffused surface water. Diffused surface water is water such as runoff from rain that doesn't flow in a defined watercourse, but it flows generally across the surface of the land. Well, that's diffused surface water. Generally, this is rain runoff or floodwater left in upland areas after floodwaters recede. This surface water belongs to the landowner until it enters a natural watercourse. Landowners can use the water however they wish, but when it enters a natural watercourse, it becomes state water. Pictured is an example of diffused surface water. This water, just from rain, runs to a series of farm ponds, but the last in the series of ponds pictured has no outlet. If the pond fills up all the way, the water just runs over the top of the pond. The photo showing a field is actually the downhill portion of the pond. It's all dry field. No water is running out of the pond, but the pond is completely filled. The final pictures show that same pond earlier in the year when it was almost dried up. Pictures show use of the pond by livestock, and when farm ponds are filled with water, they're also used by wildlife, such as ducks and deer. All these photos show the same farm ponds and the livestock, deer, and ducks that use those ponds throughout the year. This entire system is dependent on diffused surface water. All ponds go completely dry during periods of drought. Next, let's talk about groundwater. Texas treats groundwater, that's the water in our aquifers, differently than surface water. Whereas surface water is considered state property, the water beneath a landowner's property is private property. Landowners have a legal right to pump and capture whatever groundwater is available, regardless of the effect on that pumping on neighbors' wells or springs that may be fed by that same groundwater. This is called rule of capture. Since groundwater exists underground, the surface landowner doesn't actually own the water until they take it from the ground or capture it. Once captured, the rule of capture says they have the right to use the water or sell it to others. The right to capture the water can even be sold to others. Once sold or leased, any water captured may be transported by the new owners wherever they want. Here are pictures of a water well in a rural housing area where all water used by people is groundwater that comes from a well that extends into the aquifer. Now there are some limits. Landowners are not to pump an unlimited amount of water when it's done maliciously to harm a neighbor in a wasteful manner, or through negligence causing subsidence in a neighbor's land. The amount of groundwater a landowner can take may also be restricted when the water is from an underground river or is regulated by a groundwater conservation district. There are about 100 groundwater conservation districts now in Texas formed to create rules for conserving, protecting, recharging, and preventing waste of underground waters. Some exert more control over use of groundwater than others. They can register and permit wells, keep drilling and well records, regulate how far apart from each other wells are drilled, require a permit for water transfers, and buy and sell water, and generally conserve and protect the aquifer. Despite these ways to conserve groundwater, many of Texas's aquifers are being depleted. This affects future water supplies. The overuse of groundwater impacts Texas's rivers and streams. Shown here is Big Spring. Now that's a spring near Dallas that continues to flow even though other springs in the area have gone dry. Active protection by the landowner is the main reason it continues to flow. Shown here is a spring known as Jacob's Well in the hill country. Now this forms the headwaters of Cypress Creek near Wimberley. As Cypress Creek water flows downstream, it merges with the Blanco River and eventually flows into San Antonio Bay. Jacob's Well had never stopped flowing until the last 10 years, but it's gone dry now twice due to increased water use from population growth in the area. Without conservation, the well could go completely dry. Comanche Springs in Fort Stockton once fed water to a 30-mile-long stream. As a result of groundwater pumping, the spring has stopped flowing, except for brief periods after heavy rains. Next, let's talk about riparian rights. Texas also has remnants of riparian law. This means is landowners whose property borders a stream can take up to 200 acre-feet of water in a year for domestic and livestock use anytime they want. Now this isn't for big commercial farms or ranch operations, it's just for a home, farm animals, and gardens. Up to 200 acre-feet per year can also be impounded behind a dam on your property. 1 acre-foot is enough water to flood an entire football field to a depth of about 9 inches.